Hello everybody, welcome to this week's episode of the Aurelia city from City Skylines. So last week we have been doing this sports center with the stadiums and all, and we haven't really finished it. There are some places around it empty, and that's exactly where we are going to continue building today. We are not really going to continue doing the sports center because I want to start a different project. There was a comment for the last video that said that maybe I should try to look into making some sort of a construction site that's going to divide these not so great looking areas that I built a long time ago with the residential bridge or underneath the residential bridge, and obviously the sports center, or the mall, and just the general area that looks very nice with big buildings and lots of empty spaces and all that. So I thought that that's a good idea to try to build some sort of a construction site for probably some bigger, larger office building maybe, or shopping building. Maybe again, something like that. Doesn't really matter, but just a construction site. That's probably going to indicate that maybe those not so great looking places are currently being renovated. Maybe these entire blocks are just going to be demolished, and maybe some nicer buildings are going to take their place. But we are not really there yet. We are just continuing with these renovations, I guess. So that's why we are going to do a construction site. All right. Now there are also some places around the stadiums that I have been building for today's episode, but I never really finished it, and it's just a couple of buildings, for example, those rounded buildings that you can see right there. But I don't really want to show that too much in this episode. I'm probably going to just go back to building those things, or just going to show the time lapses while I was building those things when I'm actually going to finish those places. So in some future episodes, so it's nicely together, and I'm not jumping between different projects. All right, so today's episode is all going to be about the construction site. I'm not going to finish it. This video is actually going to be slightly longer, and I'm still not going to finish this construction site because it's really a big project. So it's going to be split in at least 2 videos, but hopefully not more, hopefully just the 2. Anyway, what's going on? What exactly am I building? So at first I decided that this building that I'm building, it's actually not going to be one building, but it's going to be like a series of buildings, maybe like a complex. They are going to be connected underground with maybe some garages or just some floors underground, but on the surface they will probably be some sort of curved office buildings, lots of glass and all that. And they are probably going to be like there's probably going to be like 4 of them maybe in here with different floor count and all that, but they will probably look very, very similar. We are not going to see the buildings, of course, because we are just doing the construction side, but you will probably get the idea how those buildings are probably going to look like when they're finished, because I am going to make the construction site, or the construction itself, so that it's going to be in a, well, not really advanced stage of the construction, but it's going to be clear how the resulting buildings are going to be positioned, right, in terms of their geometry and all that. Anyway, we are doing this quite large excavation in here, very, very deep. In these places close to the river, it's not all that deep, maybe like 2 floors underground in here, but closer to that highway, I excavated much larger area, much larger volume, and there's probably going to be maybe like 5 or 6 floors underground, maybe garages, or maybe just some, I don't know, something like maybe like computer rooms or whatever might there be in a futuristic office building, right? So I was not exactly sure how to do this. I didn't really want to use just the props from the workshop for some construction. Also because this construction site is very big, so I needed to come up with something of my own. I was doing this on the live stream. Well, not really. We have already moved to the part of the time lapse where I was not doing this on the live stream. I was just kind of trying to figure out what to do after the stream, because I was first placing those tubes, those hollow tubes, in the corners, and then just connecting them using something that I just recently downloaded from the workshop. These are beams, network beams. So you can create very customized, primarily bridges, for example. That's what these are intended to, and some other stuff, I guess. But I decided I'm just going to use these networks with the construction site. So later, I converted the beams into these cables. Now that's a network that's from the same pack as the beams, but they are slightly thinner. Well, actually quite a lot thinner. So it was looking much better. You know, the construction side just looked better. And I also replaced the tubes in the corners with these pillars for railroads, I guess. But they are looking all right for, you know, these kinds of pillars. I'm still keeping those tubes, those procedural objects tubes, but I'm later going to position them somewhere else. As you can see, there is also this much deeper, like a pit that's already having its walls all around in the center of this building, and that's pretty much going to be the connection, the underground connection between this portion of the complex and the building that's going to be, you know, that's going to be built from that deeper just elevation, whatever, that place underneath the highway, right? That's going to be a place where I'm not going to do anything today for today's episode because I just didn't have the time, and the project is quite large, like I said. So I'm most focusing on this place up here, closer to the river. Now, there are going to be places around the building that are not exactly going to be visible when the entire structure is finished. So you can already see where the finished structure is going to be, because that's exactly where those beams, those cable beams that I placed there, and they are forming the outline of the building. So you can already see that the building is going to be slightly curved, and it's just going to follow. Well, it's not really going to follow any particular shape that's in its surrounding, but I'm going to talk a bit more about that later. And I'm also doing these places right here that are going to be hidden underground. So this is just you know, open like this, but later it's going to be just covered. They are going to build like 2 floors in here. I'm just going to indicate that this place is going to have 2 floors, and after that it's done, it's going to be completely covered, and on top of that there might be some sort of a plaza, but it's just going to be covered. That's the point, right? So the building is going to have much larger footprint underground than on the surface. All right, that's probably what I should have said in the beginning. Anyway, I reached this point of the entire project where I started using these prefab slabs and just using them where the pillars are, because I didn't really want to use them absolutely everywhere on the surface especially. So I'm just using them where the pillars are. Obviously this is not the finished floor. There's going to be some more layers in here, concrete I guess, or something else. And we are just doing these pillars because that's obviously what would be there first. Now, I don't claim that this is going to be like a super realistic looking construction site. I was not even having, you know, that many things to choose from the workshop, like all these kinds of props and all that. Also, I'm not really going to bother with some construction equipment in this episode, like cranes and all that. I'm just going to do the structure itself, and we're gonna jump into doing a lot more detailing in the next episode, together with just finishing the entire construction site and the surrounding areas and all that, right? So today is pretty much just going to be about concrete, right? So I'm also putting some of these form works, or whatever they're called in English, and that's gonna be pretty much it. So later I'm going to put those pillars. Pretty much underneath the entire place in here, and we are going to do the construction site slightly in different phases of the construction, okay? Because I didn't really want to make it all that flat. I really wanted to have those very deeply excavated places also visible, but obviously in a real construction site, they would just be going from the ground, you know, up, and none of those places, you know, really underground would be that much visible in some later stages of the construction. But I really want this place to look more interesting in the game, obviously. So it's just going to be, you know, it's just going to be interesting to look at, that's all. So the building, the entire construction site, the entire building is going to be in various stages of the construction. So for example, right in this area, I'm going to make like a 3rd floor above the ground, but in some other places, I'm just going to keep it for pretty much the start. I'm just going to put only those pillars going from the ground, or not from the ground, but from the bottom of the excavated area, and that's going to be it. And I think it's going to look just much interesting than that. Of course, this place is going to come completely alive when I'm going to start adding some construction equipment, some cranes especially, and some other things. But like I said, I'm just going to detail that later, probably in the next episode. Now, this building is intended to have the tram going through it. Well, not really through it, but there's going to be, I'm not exactly sure how this building is exactly going to look like when it's done. But I was thinking that this corridor where I'm just building this fake road, it might be having some sort of a glass over it, which is going to be connecting the two buildings of this entire office complex together. But the point is that there's going to be a tram going through this construction site when it's going to be finished. You can see that I already created some fake tracks that are going towards this area but are not finished intentionally, right? So in here I was just doing this road so I could see where it would go when it was finished, so I could place those slightly beefier pillars in there and just working around it. But as you could have seen already in the first couple of minutes of the video, I was doing the actual tracks that are connecting the existing line through the construction site. I was doing that slightly further away. And that's going to be a railroad for the trains, for the trams. That is going to be a temporary structure. I'm later going to put like a steel, again, like a temporary bridge for those trams. I even decreased the maximum speed limit for the trams in there. And it's just something that I really wanted to put in the construction site to create just some sort of a temporary path for the trams to follow. I know the trams could have probably went somewhere else, probably completely bypassed the construction site, but it wouldn't be all that interesting. So I just decided to do it like this. Also, as you can see, I'm working from the top towards the bottom in regards to placing all these concrete slabs and just these kinds of details, right? The reason for that is simple. I just don't want to detail absolutely everything because this building is huge. It's going to have a lot of floors. So I don't really want to detail every single floor, putting these slabs absolutely everywhere. So I'm doing just the top ones and then just judging what is going to be visible from the ones underneath. And I'm just putting enough stuff there so that it's going to be visible, right? So the topmost floors that are finished at this phase of the construction are going to be detailed and finished and all that. But the ones underneath that won't, because it's also better for the performance. I don't really want to have 5 FPS when looking at this place. And I also don't want to burn all the prop limits on this area. So like I said, I'm just going to be doing the details on the floors that are the topmost right now in this phase of the construction. Okay, so as you can see, I'm also putting these pillars everywhere, these procedural object pillars, making sure that again I'm placing them in places where it's going to make sense, where they are going to be visible, and not just putting them just underneath there where it wouldn't be all that useful. It would be just wasting time really doing details that are not going to be visible anyway, right? So like I said, I'm pretty sure that there's probably going to be some of you thinking that this is not exactly a realistic construction site. Well, to that I can only say that I'm again limited by what I can download from the workshop, and also I was trying to make it more interesting to look at. So some of the places in the construction site are in different phases of the construction, which is not exactly all that super realistic, but this is not a realistic series anyway, so it's fine. So like I was saying previously, this place of the building, I decided that I'm gonna extend, above the surface, above the actual surface. So I'm placing some of these floors in here and again, just putting some pillars. I was also putting those staircases in here. They are prefab staircases, so again, not exactly fitting in here, but it's probably the best I have in regards to the props I can use. All right. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna leave you with some music for the rest of the time lapse and the cinematics. We will work on this project in the next episode, extending the site and detailing it. So thank you for watching today's episode. Hope you're going to like it. If you do, then make sure to put a thumbs up underneath the video, share it, and subscribe to the channel if you're new here. And also, if you want to directly support the channel, you can become a channel member by clicking the join button below. Enjoy the rest of the video, take care, and goodbye.